Welcome to the March to a Million podcast with Greg DuPont, founder of the Wealth Solutions Network. In this podcast, Greg shares his journey to positively impact 1 million lives by creating an army of financially minded attorneys who embrace an expanded role in their clients' lives. Greg and his guests challenge the status quo in the legal profession and the financial services industry, and show attorneys how they can improve their lives, provide greater value to their clients, and experience greater professional satisfaction. Join us in this movement and strengthen your business by learning how to solve your clients' most pressing financial problems.
Hello and welcome to another March to a Million podcast with your host, Greg DuPont. So Greg and I are joined by Shana Sissel. Now, she is otherwise known as the Queen of Alts, and we're going to dive into what that means and how that works. She's the CEO and founder of Banrion Capital, and it is going to be a super, super fun conversation. Just to preface, I was watching all of your media appearances, and it was just so much fun to watch you navigate to different hosts and different lines of question. And so I hope we do you justice today by really pulling out some super brilliant stuff. So Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then I will be a color commentator as needed.
Well, thank you, Matt. So, hello, Shana. Thank you for joining me today.
Not a problem. Happy to be here.
So Matt introduced us a few days ago, and I was asking him, Matt, I've got lots of people that come to me through my network that say, we've heard a lot about this stuff like private equity and all that stuff, and how do we get our clients involved in that? And Matt was kind enough to hook us up, and you and I had a great conversation offline here, and I thought it'd be better to have that conversation again here online so we can share that with my followers. So first of all, let's start by what is Banrion, who is Shana, and what's this all about?
Okay, well, that's a loaded question, and there's a couple questions there. So let's start with what is Banrion? So Banrion Capital Management, and I know I was recently brought to my attention that putting the capital management in the title confuses people, but the lineage of Banrion was that it didn't start as a tech platform, and I wasn't about to change the name when it did become a tech platform. But we are a financial technology platform for financial advisors like yourself, Greg, that helps advisors basically identify deal flow in the alternative space. We screen partners, we provide due diligence, we provide business development tools, we provide matching scores and cap intro with our partnership with AssetLink. We also create analytics that are meant to incorporate public and private data. There's a wealth of things we do: thought leadership, education, so on and so forth. And then through our portal, we have direct investing. So our partners have all built out a digital onboarding solution that connects directly with our technology platform that allows advisors like yourself to directly invest through the platform. You never have to leave. It's a really seamless experience. That onboarding is directly integrated with Adipar, Orion, Tamarack, and Black Diamond, which allows for you, the advisor, to have a very quick and easy onboarding because it's a two-way connection, meaning we can pull data from and send data to those systems. So we can pre-fill a lot of documents, makes the investing in a private fund, that subscription document hassle, go the way of the past. You can do it in like 5 minutes. And then it's directly connected so that you can do consolidated billing, consolidated reporting. We do data reconciliation to ensure that the information is correct. We have tax reporting information. Like, the wealth of things that we do is significant. But the goal, of course, was to provide a seamless experience for advisors to be able to be in this space and eliminate some of the key points of friction that we hear about all the time. Things like, oh, if you don't custody at Fidelity or Schwab, I can't use you. Well, that's only true if you don't also use Orion, Black Diamond, Adipar, and Tamarack. And we're adding new providers every day. If you do, then that is a moot point. Oh, we can't invest because we need third-party due diligence. Well, we do that. Oh, I can't invest because I don't want to have 10 different portals, K1s. There's a million reasons why advisors get tripped up in the process, and we seek to solve all of those problems. So that is what Banrion does. Now, what Shana is so I've been in this industry for 25 years. I started my career as a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley, and I've spent the vast majority of my career, give or take 8 years, working in the wealth management channel. So there was a point in time that I worked in the institutional space as an allocator for alternatives. And so that has really given me breadth and depth of the alternative universe, and looking at it and understanding that there's some really key differences between what they do on the institutional side and what's appropriate for the advisor side. And they are not one and the same. And most people would like you to think that they are, but they're not. And we feel really strongly that the partners that are great for institutions may not be great partners for advisors and vice versa. But the vast majority of the alternative access platforms that are out there for advisors are really pushing institutional product, which again may not be a great fit, and they don't really service an entire part of the universe, which is actually great fit for advisors, which is asset managers with under $1 billion in AUM. Because they are bigger, better partners. They can't take large sums of institutional money. They don't have capacity. So they're really perfect for the advisor market, but they're broadly underserved. And because they're not on a platform and they don't have the knowledge and understanding of what advisors need, they aren't really set up for advisors to use them until now. So I take my breadth of knowledge from doing that and applied it with the knowledge that I learned when I worked at Orion and helped build out the foundation for what is now the Orion TAMP, and use all that experience to kind of bring alts to the wealth management channel in a way that I think, and Greg, you've seen the demo, so you kind of know, in a way that advisors can really succeed in the space where, so many have tried and failed in terms of getting advisors to kind of move the needle. So that's my background. That's why they call me the Queen of Alts. I have like 18 years experience in alternatives. So not new to the space, and as institutional and in the wealth management channel. So I bring up depth to the conversation, especially being a former advisor myself, that I think really differentiates us from everybody else. And then you had a third question, and I've already forgotten it. So
that's right. I'm going to take us a different direction from here. So thank you for laying all that out, because that's a whole lot there. And I opened up with a big question like that. So let's pull back, because here is what led me to our conversation, and what the listeners, I want them to take away from all of this is, as you know, the market has been consolidating with the number of publicly traded companies is so much smaller than it used to be, and alongside of that, there's been this growth of your world, the alternative world, and I contend that most people in the investment space are only focusing on the mass channel space. And to be a true fiduciary, you need to know of this universe that you are representing, and how this fits in. And as you've just kind of unpacked, there have been lots of barriers for a guy like me trying to get in and saying, okay, I know of this private equity firm, this private debt firm, or whatever, that I'm confident is not a shell game, that I'm confident that we can get into, because we don't need $1 gazillion to get into, which has been, the home office, home type of facility to get there. And that's what you're giving keys to, that world. Am I correct?
That's correct. And, it's interesting to me. I talk to a lot of asset managers, right? Because that's what we're trying to build, is the largest marketplace of alternative deal flow for the wealth management channel. Now, we can get into later how we're able to do that and still make it so it's not overwhelming. Because I know, if you think about some of our competitors, they have 3,000, 4,000 funds, but most advisors only use like 20 of them, because those are the 20 at the top of the page that pay the most to be at the top of the page. So largely, the remainder get ignored and also don't get a ton of support, so they don't even know how to support the advisor. So yes, our goal is to have the largest amount of deal flow, but we want to open the door up to some of the players that will have smaller minimums, that don't have a ton of capacity, so they don't really fit the institutional market, that really are willing to pick up the phone, get on a plane, help you close business, that are going to be unique, that you can't just get anywhere. And everybody gets caught up on, well, this big institution everybody's heard of. Well, yeah, that's true, and that can be helpful. But I think we're at a really interesting point, just culturally speaking, where like it's not necessarily a good thing to be like this big institutional entity anymore. Like people feel like those guys are stepping on the little guys. And so connecting with folks that might be a better fit, I think, is important. And we're really the only player in the space that is willing to have those conversations with the smaller funds. Literally the only ones. I talk to asset managers all the time, and even the bigger ones feel like, okay, unless you're one of those 20 funds on that marketplace, I am paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to be on a marketplace and getting not a lot for it because I'm not Blackstone. Right. And so for those reasons, I really felt like there was a major hole in the market. And advisors like yourself, I keep hearing like they don't want the big guys. They want the smaller niche things, better experience, better connections. And really, we're the only place to find that. I think to your greater point is that as a fiduciary, and we can have this debate. I was on a webinar or web series, like live streamed podcast last week. And I kind of got into a bit of a debate with a couple of the folks on the podcast who were saying like, oh, individual investors should not invest in this universe. And I thought to myself, well, first off, I feel like that's very condescending, right? Like the reasoning behind it was, they don't understand. It's too complicated. Like this isn't meant for them. And I think that's really, short-sighted. So there is plenty. This is a massive universe of opportunity. And it's so many different things that people don't even think about in the space. And in fact, on that particular podcast, there was a point towards the end where I was like, well, because we shifted the conversation into like talking about ESG. And I started talking about how alts is where impact can be felt. ESG is a marketing term, but if you really want impact investing, the only place that exists is in alternatives. You're not getting that kind of impact through, traditional larger players in the public markets. So things like microfinance opportunities for female entrepreneurs in underdeveloped countries, or workforce housing and redevelopment, and places where housing is largely unaffordable, things like that. Like we have somebody on our platform, Scholastic, that looks to take a component of their portfolio of residential housing in like these really expensive markets in the Midwest and make affordable rental houses for public servants like police officers and teachers so that they can live in the communities they serve. These are things that are powerful and have impact and are also great investments, and you're not getting them anywhere but the alternative space. So I think it's really short-sighted to suggest that this isn't appropriate. And quite frankly, as an advisor, this is exactly the slam dunk you want, right? You want the thing your client needs you to help them with, not the stuff that they could do on their own. And that's where this is really a sweet spot.
So, Matt, I'm going to ask you to chime in here since I asked you to stay along for the ride here, and because you have a good way of making sure that we don't miss the mark on kind of some of the basic concepts. So,
So I have a couple of thoughts, and really just the last two segments there with you, Shana, is so one thing that we are hearing in the marketplace, especially, so the foundation of March to a Million is to go ahead and help 1 million families, actually be able to not have to pay an insane amount of taxes and make sure that wealth can be transferred in a much more convenient, palatable, and important way. And so the families that are listening, or the advisors that are listening to this, are looking for, and this is why we wanted to have you on, they're looking for somebody they can pick up the phone and actually get a human on the other end to answer their questions, which the big boxes don't. I'm just going to call them big boxes. The big investment companies, 19 transfers, I can't answer your question. Right. So the ability that you have, and the other thing that I really like that I wanted to highlight is you are so out in the media that there's so much educational foundation out there for advisors to make, these sorts of investment decisions. And then my last point is this, especially for the audience for this show, March to a Million's process is to fundamentally separate you from any other expert that your clients are working with, right? That's what Greg has built, right? This, this amount of estate planning attorneys, financial advisors, CP, the network that has been built is really, really important. And they're always looking for something that they can offer their clients that other advisors aren't offering. And Shana, you did such a great job of explaining that you have access to, and you can give advisors access to these products and services that are fundamentally client focused to help clients achieve their goals, not just financially, but also from an emotional standpoint, spiritual standpoint, values standpoint. And I just really wanted to highlight that. What would you add to that?
Well, I would say everything you said is completely correct. We center our entire solution around solving for the advisor, around the advisor, not about pushing product and helping asset managers distribute. That's like a secondary thing that we do. We believe that if we get good managers and we help them learn how to best support the channel, then the distribution just comes naturally, right? So that's a secondary goal, but the first goal is to make sure that everything is about supporting the advisor. So Banrion 1.0, which Greg has seen the demo for, the technology, really solves for the key points of friction that we hear advisors tell us all the time, keep them out of alts. But Banrion 2.0 is about taking that to the next level for providing, once you've gotten through all that friction, right, that's kept you out of it, then you realize, oh, there's other things we need. You just didn't know it because you never got that far. So Banrion 2.0, which is like things that we'll be rolling out in the second half of the year, are things like our client blueprint, which we're working with, Matt and I have talked about it. I know, Matt, you are super, you know exactly the idea that I'm talking about, but the client blueprint, we're working with Stephanie Bogan at Limitless to help us create, which is like a really deep dive into the key attributes of your underlying client base, so that you can understand the things that really make them tick, like love languages, but for clients, and then taking that data and using AI to find and match you with the right managers for those kind of clients based on not just the attributes of things that they'll identify with, but also things like liquidity terms and structure and evergreen versus drawdown and taxes and all that. And then being able to take that matching score and create with AI, given a number of directions by me, model portfolios with the stuff your clients matched with. So, we hear from advisors like, it's hard enough just to make the investment. Okay, now I've solved all of that, right? Now that's great. Now, how do I find the best stuff for my client? There's so much stuff. Like, how do I even do that? So we funnel that out. Okay, now I see this stuff. How do I even build a portfolio? Okay, we've solved for that. And that's kind of thinking about, not just how to solve a problem that exists today, but the problems that will arise from solving those problems. We're already ahead of the game for that. And again, it's all about, okay, we think that advisors should be in this space. We know why they haven't been. People can agree or disagree with me, but I think largely I'm right on this. And once I solve that problem and advisors now want to be in the space, how do we solve the next problems they'll have, which is how do we build the portfolios? How do I find the right stuff? How do I communicate it with the clients? And we've already started and begun to incorporate those things into our solutions, so that advisors, once they get there, can then accelerate their allocations in the space and find things that fit every niche. So like from a tax consequence, a liquidity thing, a complexity thing, talk about, key values and impact, all the different things that are going to be part of the conversation as we move forward.
And we really do want, I'm sorry, I'm just one other quick thing, Greg, I'm just going to highlight and I'll turn it back over to you. Part of the community that Greg has been building with March to a Million and the Wealth Solutions Network is changing the conversation that you're having with your clients, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you go in as an estate planning attorney and have the estate planning conversation, now you can start hopefully seeing, rounding out what Shane is talking about here, changes the fundamental emotional, behavioral, psychological, behavioral finance conversation, because we're actually solving for some other problems. Sorry, Greg, go ahead.
No worries. And you've talked about this throughout our conversation here, but shortly and succinctly, you mentioned in passing, what is your case for why advisors should be in this space for their clients?
It's a diversification or a risk management tool at the end of the day. You can build better portfolios because the portfolio that's best for your client is the one they can stick with. If you can reduce the volatility and the risk in a portfolio, they're more likely to stick with it over time and they'll be able to reach their goals. That is the key. Now, that from a marketing perspective isn't sexy. Isn't sexy at all. So there's a secondary component to it as well, which I think is the sexier part that is interesting, which is that Matt is the one who kind of schooled me on this. The average individual who works with an advisor, I think it's like the vast majority don't feel like their advisor bothers to know them, that doesn't ask them questions. And so retention is not great. People will move to a different advisor at any time if they have the next sexy thing because they don't have any loyalty to their advisor because they don't feel like their advisor has any loyalty to them because they've never bothered to get to know them. Now, not all advisors are like that, but I can see like advisors that have a lot of clients and things of that nature that would be the case. If you think about it, our solution and alternatives in general are that way to get to know your client better and get to know what makes them tick and can prompt conversations that you probably didn't think to have when you were just looking at traditional markets.
Well, that's gold, and I say that specifically because what I am preaching to the members of WSN is we don't need to know all of the tools and the techniques. We just need to know the problems that exist and the questions that need to be asked and to have those conversations and to connect. And that is our secret sauce. That is the way that we outcompete the big boxes, as Matt referred to them, because the big boxes don't offer this. They don't allow this level of bespoke investing. And what you are doing there is taking what used to be the exclusive province of the millionaires and billionaires and bringing that down to the level where I won't say mom and pop, but a typical run-of-the-mill type of client that we see in a law practice that want to do estate planning can qualify. So as we wrap up, if who is this not a fit for?
So I think it's really interesting that you asked that. Obviously, we're not going direct to individual investors. We're not. A lot of people hate the word retail, but I got nothing else. So the retail market per se, we really are focused on working with people who work with advisors, which in and of itself is a hurdle that makes them probably more inclined to be attracted to these types of products. They're working with an advisor for a reason. They have wealth. To your point with estate planning, estate planning is one of those things that like everybody should have. And I've had a number of conversations, even if you don't think you should have an estate plan, you probably should. But the people who are probably hiring you for the depth of the estate planning that you do probably have some complexity to their wealth and need to plan really succinctly for that, which means they're probably able to access some of this. And I think to your point, who isn't it for? Well, I could argue that everybody can and should access alternatives. There's no real barriers anymore now with a lot of, 40 Act funds doing hedge fund-like strategies, interval funds allowing for, any investor to gain access to private credit, private equity. There's no real barrier anymore. But the conversation does happen where you do have to think about liquidity terms, like people who don't have money that they're okay with locking up for some period of time, probably not for them. People who are scared of complexity, or even even advisors that just don't feel confident. Like we hope to provide confidence by educating you and being there for you. But I would never suggest to an advisor who's very uneducated in the space to just jump in feet first. I would say work with somebody like us to get that education and to have access to the things that you kind of can dip your toe in to gain experience before going all in on the really illiquid private equity, private credit. But the people that definitely don't belong are the people who just, the do-it-yourselfers, the direct-to-retail market, the folks that don't work with advisors, and the folks that need a lot of liquidity today.
Matt, anything you'd like to add before we wrap today?
I think that was a very good explanation of what's going on. So the people who listen to the show, complexity is what they lean into, Shana, which is why this is such a wonderful conversation, because really, when you are hiring an estate planning attorney at the level of somebody like Greg, there is layers of complexity to that. And there's tax implications and there's all of these different things, which I know that your products and services can solve for. Okay. So if somebody wants to reach out, I mean, obviously everybody, you guys can reach out to Greg and Greg can go ahead and, get you in contact. But Shana, what's the best way for our audience to reach out and find out more?
They can just email me directly, Shana@banrioncapital.com. Our website is a work in progress. We're going to be completely, basically tearing it down and rebuilding it. So it's a little dated, but you can go to our website at least to get contact information, to sign up for our newsletter and things of that nature. I'm also all over social media. You can find me on LinkedIn, X, Instagram. Those are probably the 3 places I'm most active. So you can find me in any of those, and I'm sure in the show notes you guys will put my handles. So yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm always here. I love to hear from advisors. As a matter of fact, when Greg and I got on the phone the last time, I was like, okay, I thought we were prepping for the podcast. He's like, no, I want to see the demo. I'm actually really interested in what you do. I want to sign on. And I was like, oh, okay. Didn't see that coming, but sure. And so I'm always pleasantly surprised and happy to talk to advisors who want to use our services. We're always looking for advisors in a pilot group that can help us really make sure that what we're building is exactly what we say it is. And we still have some opportunity in that group, which Greg has become part of. And so, we're here for you. We want your feedback. The pilot group advisors are the most important advisors to us because they're the critical feedback that allows us to build the best possible solution. And there's all sorts of perks to being part of our pilot group too, sure, that we can discuss if anybody wants to reach out.
Well, all of you who are listening to this podcast and who are involved in the Wealth Solutions Network have been earlier adopters. And this is just a wonderful opportunity for you to continue that trend of you being a personal person who really is interested in being on the cutting edge of what is going on in the world of financial services and being able to offer even more products and services to your estate planning clients. All right. And Shana, of course, we are going to have you, took a little bit of my thunder there, sister. I appreciate that. We will have all of the links to everything that Shana just said in the show notes so that you can go ahead and click on and find out more about her. But really, the best thing to do is really follow her on LinkedIn, right? There's so much wonderful stuff. I was snooping you before the show today. Like I said, it was just so much fun seeing all of the different places that you're going and all of the great information that you're sharing. All right. So for Greg and for Shana, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see all of you on the other side of the mic very soon.
Thank you for listening to the March to a Million podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available, and get in touch with our team by visiting our website at www.wealthsolutionsgroup.biz or give us a call at 614-432-8065. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Wealth Solutions Network. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice from qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have.